Stefan, thanks for joining me today. Excited to continue our conversation on the Lua product and our product roadmap. Today, we're going to dive into what we've released over the last 2 weeks and how our thinking about our product roadmap is evolving in the next 90 days. So let's kick it off with some of the themes we talked about last week.
Yeah, awesome. I think last week you spoke about kind of taking a deep dive down the data analytical side of things. We've released the APIs now. So I know the market's kind of talking about evaluations and how do you implement evaluations, and I don't think there's a concrete kind of foundation in terms of how to implement it yet. So we took a very different approach. We took it from a business metric perspective and took it as a business owner for one of our insurance products and one of our banking KYC onboarding products or customers. And the ideal was, what would that business, their expectations be of the data that comes out at the end of the pipeline, making it easy and fully understandable by the rest of the business. So it kind of landed up with, you've got this amazing technology, which is, neural net language processing. You should be able to speak to it. So we built an API endpoint where you can literally write in text and say, I want to know how many of my users are getting stuck in OTP cycles, how many of them are getting stuck in the loan cycle or KYC or whatever cycle it is. Or if you've used our dev tools before, you can just ask the agent, how do I measure my agent to be the best? And it'll come up with suggestions. And the suggestions come through a normal text telling you, I see your agent does loans. This is the funnel I think you should be monitoring. I think you should be monitoring user sentiment. You should be monitoring how long it takes users to transition between different states. And just generally how the agent communicates. From that, there's a second API from the suggestions where you can just click or you submit the API and we'll implement those metrics. The system in the back would recommend chart types. So there's a variation of chart types, so trends and scores, comparison charts, etc. It'll look at based on the metric that was suggested and then implement 3 or 4 different charts. And it should visualize on your admin dashboard, or you can use the API to pull the data at any event. So basically what happens is that when you initiate or when you create the evaluation, it attaches to the post to the kind of after effects of what the agent response is. And then we have a master LLM looking at your kind of the context of the user in terms of their communication, their previous communication, what their inbound message was, what the agent responded, and then it executes based on what that analytical outcome should be. Which then drops the charts up for you. There's a bit of a mixture. It's still very much in prototyping. I think the value we've seen in terms of identifying bottlenecks and flows has been quite valuable for our users. We'll be kind of looking at bringing it up to our admin dashboard in the next week or 2 to try and make it as simple as efficient for anyone to kind of go and speak and create charts and flows. I think what we want to get to is getting away from the static. Everyone has the same charts. When you log into your bank, everyone has the same charts. But what if that chart was actually meant for me as a user and fully understand what I'm trying to get out of the agent itself? So yeah, so we're pretty much there. Final designs going in. For the admin side of things, the API is exposed. We've got a couple of beta users using APIs at the moment, putting their data out. So that's that. The other one is we've been working hard on the voice side of things. So when you use the Lua command line, you can write Lua chats, which are text-based, and you can chat to your Lua instantly, to your agent instantly. We've now added voice on, so it'll actually activate the microphone in your dev zone, so you can chat to it interactively and being able to kind of adjust the tones, etc. We've integrated with multiple voice providers, and the one thing we're trying to get to is having a human-like voice interaction, which is a lot more empathetical, and there's tones and pitches we can adjust based on grammar that's inputted on that side. That should be live on the dev tools already. And then finally, we're looking at, I'm old school. I enjoy black and white screens. Writing and command line is wonderful, but we're busy finishing off the GUI for the developers. So young generation developers, you'll just go Lua dev in your command line. It'll open up a GUI, and you can do pretty much everything inside that GUI visually, what you did previously in the command line or from the dev tool side of things. So that's kind of what we've been working on over the last 2 weeks. Yeah, I maybe got any questions. Go.
Yeah, it's a ton of updates. It's exciting. I think on the analytics point, I've seen a couple of those reports, and as a marketer, it's really exciting because a problem a lot of marketers face is maybe you have this standard type form lead submission flow or a very kind of rigid checkout flow on an e-commerce store. It's really hard to test a different flow because the metrics are different. So something informal like a chat checkout or a chat lead submission is tough because you might just have historically success and not success and kind of a black box in the middle. Some of the reports I've seen coming out really solve that of actually abstracting a kind of funnel that is comparable to what they might be running in Typeform or in Shopify, but is that not actually forcing the user through that flow? How are we thinking about kind of matching those charts to maybe existing data that these businesses have through their other channels?
Yeah. So I think fundamentally the process behind these data endpoints is that our analytics agent or the eval agent looks at your agent in full context. So it looks at it based on its persona, it looks at it based on the resources you've given, it looks at it based on the tool sets. So it'll actually go down to a very fine-grained solution. So one of the customers we're using it for at the moment is on their marketing. When the user clicks a WhatsApp link, it goes, "Hey, I saw your ad on promo X." And the agent automatically knows how to kind of tag that user. So you can actually look at it per marketing down the funnel in terms of what that process looks like, which is great. In terms of the merging of existing external data, so using dev tools, we have the semantic vector stores, which you can use to import external data and report on those things. But ultimately, I think the more advanced users would use something like the API to pull the data out of the agent. I think in future iterations, we can look at molding and pulling in data to enhance a lot of these kind of insight side of things. But I think we're going to kind of take it step by step in the intro.
Yeah, makes sense. I think the API reporting I saw was really interesting in that it just kind of naturally pulled out a funnel, but it also pulled out cross sections of data in a much more nuanced way than a typical report I'm used to as a marketer. So kind of providing both qualitative and quantitative and subdivided data, which is great, and I think leads to an operational case I saw this week was where we actually agentically found a problem in someone's KYC, and specifically in their OTP. Talk about how that impacted the business that we were partnering with, and how there will be more examples like that going forward.
Yeah, I think within a natural conversation, so in a non-deterministic flow, it's very hard to control the funnel. Because basically you're giving this agent the ability to autonomously service a customer. The goal is for you to be able to measure that agent and understand like how efficient is it actually getting it from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. The reality is if it was only up to that agent, it would probably be 100%. But when you're working with third-party systems, there's things like transient failures or integration failures or downtimes from external systems. And you don't want to find out a week down the line, you kind of go like, how many loads did I issue this week? And you go like, oh shit, my conversion rate was 0.1%. Why is that? And then try and fully understand it, because then at that point, you've got 100 millions of conversations kind of coming in. Analyzing that conversations becomes super hard. So when we ran the analytics and the insights reports, you can do that in real time from the dashboard. You can do that in real time from the API, or you can run a report at any point in time where the agent diagnoses and tells you what's wrong and kind of gives you insights in terms of how to fix it. But in terms of their business model, that customer, particularly, their conversion rate was 0.3%. And the funnel indicated one big problem, which is top of the stream, which is one OTP delivery. And the other one was when you user kind of gets the OTP delivery, there's a system error that occurs. So it helps you also build a better process in terms of how you want that flow to fundamentally kind of go downstream, which most likely would probably have gone kind of unnoticed, because if you look at the natural conversation, the user gets oh, I couldn't issue a loan, there was a problem, or you have an existing loan, etc. So there's a lot of kind of conflicting information with third-party systems that it can help you diagnose downstream. But this partner specifically, their conversion rate has gone up by 20%. They're still evaluating some of the other systems that has to go downstream that they need to go and kind of fix.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool to see the platform reaching kind of outside of the core function and influencing other parts of our partners' businesses. That I think relates to voice too. Like something we've been talking about with a lot of partners recently is AI is more than chat, right? Like we've all been trained by ChatGPT and by all the different tools over the last couple of years that, chat is the default interface. I think voice is a cool step beyond that, but talk to me about how we are using voice, but also more broadly kind of reaching outside of chat to impact our partners.
Yeah, I think voice becomes super interesting. There's I think in a world we still pretty much rely on jumping on a phone call because we feel like text is too asynchronous. So I want a problem fixed now, I'm gonna jump on a call. Or if I want a problem solved later on, I'm happy to send an email or send a text message. So voice is still a natural instinct for urgency for people to kind of go to. That, and then a lot of older businesses still very much rely on inbound voice calls to service their customers. So voice becomes I mean, it's hard to say where it's going to end up in the next 12 to 18 months, but I think it's a good place for you to bring in, take away those multi-step IVRs, which everyone kind of frustrates, press button 1, press 2, and just get straight to the answer. And that's basically what the voice agent gives the business the ability to do, is service the customer in the most probably human-like way possible versus going through some systematic flow to get the customer. But not just that, the agent can also upsell through those conversations, which makes it very super interesting. So if you're selling, a product for a fixed price and there's add-ons onto it, the agent can understand the user's use case and then upsell those through kind of conversation. It's yet to be determined how successful voice agents will be, but it's definitely high in demand. And it seems like a quick and easy implementation to switch out your existing kind of IVR flows and reduce just, even if it's 80% of the inbound overheads from existing kind of call center agents, it becomes super effective. The other channels which we're seeing quite a bit of outside of kind of just your chat interfaces is businesses kicking off events at certain point in times. End of day, we know, huge banks would do kind of reconciliation processes, but those reconciliation processes are very deterministic in terms of like if then, else then. It doesn't really give you an insight view of what was happening throughout that day. So for instance, one of our customers have 12,000 members on the ground selling, various goods. They've got sales targets. They've got to keep their booths up to scale. So for a single kind of manager across that portfolio, it becomes super hard to fully understand, what makes our business super successful. Is it that person? Is it the product? Right. Is it the customer? Is it the segment? So having, them being able to communicate with, something on WhatsApp or even something on an email or an application. And as that event comes through, we analyze the event and we start building a report, a real-time report. So a manager can log in anytime in the back office and kind of go, okay, I know exactly where X, Y, and Z is sitting because I have something that's actually filtering all that information and categorizing it for me. So we're seeing a huge amount of that kind of coming in. The other one is financial systems. So we have a Middle Eastern company that's quite a big conglomerate, and they do a huge amount of financial transactions every single day. The reconciliation process from all these sources becomes super hard and becomes a kind of a tedious process with manual captures. So hooking the agent up to sit at that pipeline entry and do simple things like classification or categorization, just to filter out 90% of the work to enable the team to focus on the problematic areas. Because what they're doing now is they've got about 30 or 40 staff members that take this information coming in, try and input and correct into the system. That takes them weeks on end. And then their last week is spent on actually diagnosing some of the issues happening. Whereas the agent can almost instantly take away 80% of that overhead, categorize, and just give a bucket of issues that's problematic. So internally for the finance department, it makes them more effective. Because they're actually focusing on the problem areas, not on just the general operational overheads side of things.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's exciting to see how the different channels, different ways of interacting also overlaps with the analytical capabilities we're adding in, and kind of creates this flywheel effect of touching more and more of our partners' business.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's exciting to see how different businesses perceive and weave it into their structures. The general vision of Lua has always been to be the fibers within your business. It was never meant to be there to replace the existing CRM or an ERP or internal kind of efficiency databases, etc. It's there to try and help you optimize the existing processes you have for you to be able to kind of focus your human resource on things that matter. I think, if I look at some of these massive corporate, 70 to 80% of their resources are just spent internally. It's non-revenue driving. It's there just to keep the business operating as usual, whereas the 20% of focus outbound and driving new revenue. We want to get to a point where we actually get 80% of the business focusing on driving new revenue and having the AI run these operational overheads internally.